Those of you just joining us, welcome to this session. I'm very excited to have you. Good morning and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the session. We're about to be joined by colleagues who are on the streaming service. So those of you who are watching the content on Facebook, YouTube or LinkedIn from ETF's sites, good morning and welcome to the streamers, as well as those of you here that are watching the broadcast today in Zoom. Good morning and welcome. We'll be underway in around about a minute. If you've just arrived, please just check your cameras, make sure we can see you. And also just check that your sound's good. If you want to unmute yourself and say hello, please do so. Or you can just welcome us via the chat channel. We'll be underway very, very shortly. We'll be hearing from your moderator, Simona, this morning, and Christina, who will be leading the session.
Okay, actually 1 minute to go. And in fact, is 9 a.m. sharp. So I think we can start. Thank you so much, Ian, for being with us in this soft start and welcoming all our first participants, also those who came even earlier. So actually, good morning and good afternoon to all of you. And it is a privilege for me to welcome you in this session, which is Skills for All, which is within the ETF UNESCO International Conference Week. I also would like to welcome our audience from the social media, from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. My name is Simona Rinaldi. I work at the ETF, and actually today I'm here with Cristina Mereuta, which is actually our senior human capital development expert. I would suggest to stop the screen sharing because I think it would be good to see all of us in gallery mode. Okay, allora, before we start, I remind just a few features about Zoom. Now you can see actually a slide. All of us now, because of COVID, we know very well Zoom, but it's just a quick recap. So if we can actually see the slide, just remember to keep the microphone off unless you need to talk, and possibly if your internet connection allows this, to keep your camera on. We will have for sure moment when there will be interaction and we will talk each other. So these are actually the Zoom instruction. Also, an important point is that interpretation is available in other languages, which are French, Arabic, and Russian. You click on the icon interpretation, you select your language, and then you will be able to listen the entire proceeding of the event in the selected language. And that's all as much actually as Zoom instructions are concerned. So as I said, today we really would like to present you very interesting pieces of information and knowledge, but we also want to interact with you. Today, as you might know, is the third day of the ETF UNESCO Conference Week. And actually, this is a week where we had the 3 days of thematic session where really we want to talk with you, practitioners, those who actually benefit from the change, but also those who implement the change. And all of this with lead us to 1.5 days of high-level event, which will start tomorrow, where actually we will benefit from designer of system change. We actually needed to reflect on good practice and reconfirm priorities. Last but not least, we also have the Ideas Bazaar, which is a virtual experience that will go all around this week of events, where you will get the link at the very end. So this is for you to stay at the end where we are. This is a map. You see, this was the famous week I was guiding you through, and we are in the 3rd day. So this is where you are, Skills for All. I think that if you are ready to start, I'm very pleased to pass the floor to my colleague Cristina. So we stop screen sharing, we spotlight Cristina, and I think that now our meeting can officially start. Cristina, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I welcome everyone from all the countries around the world. We know that we have participants from Central Asia to Portugal. So the main topic of today's session is inclusive education. And we know that inclusive education is on everyone's lips these days. But what is it exactly? Is it a myth or something tangible? What does it really mean to leave no one behind in education? Is that even possible? There are so many different kinds of learners, young or adult, privileged or less privileged, with special needs, part of minority groups, supported by their families or not. How can we possibly cater for all these different needs? Is that even possible? So, although this is not the right word, it's not needs we are catering for, it's people. Our job is to cater for people. Young learners whose education might depend on the income of their families, on the proximity of a kindergarten, or whether their municipalities have enough money to pay enough teachers or to upgrade the equipment in schools. And we cater for adults. They have obsolete qualifications. They might be single parents, and their future depends on how easy it is to access training at the right moment with the right support. We have a fantastic job, dear guests. Not an easy one for sure, and often we have to make impossible decisions. There are so many divides in our world. We know that there is a physical divide, and the impact of underdeveloped infrastructure on the communities shapes the access to education. So the biggest challenge is to secure equal access to quality education and enough lifelong learning opportunities throughout the country. And of course, we are dealing with this digital divide in the pandemic context. We know the losses are immense and not yet fully accounted for, not yet fully studied. So all these divides reduce the individual opportunities to learn, to grow, to develop a profession, and to develop a career and get included in the society. So it's our job to bridge all these challenges. It's a fantastic job and of course a difficult job. We know that young graduates face lengthier transition from school to work. For a university graduate, it takes roughly 1 year to get a job. But for an early school leavers, it may take up to 4 or 5 years. The pandemic will make even more complex or difficult these transitions from school to work. And an inclusive system needs to have the right answers in internship, in apprenticeship, in tailored counseling. At the same time, inclusive education requires a lot of effort. If we do our job right, we won't be making these efforts alone. Social partners, youth associations, specialized non-governmental organizations play a crucial role in designing and delivering the inclusive education. We know as well that the negative learning experiences are the biggest reason for school abandonment. And we know, all of us, we know that kid who did not get access to proper education. We know, all of us, we know that kid who was bullied at school for being part of a minority group or a migrant. We all know that kid or adult who struggles as a learner. Everything factors into learning experience. Our job, dear guest, is to look beyond school performance and see the people. With this, I invite our speakers today from the ETF partner countries and EU member states to share their knowledge, reforms, experiences in building inclusive education systems. We will also hear from our colleagues from CEDEFOP and international labor organizations on their reflections on building inclusive learning pathways, affordable, flexible. And finally, we will hear from young people on their opinions about the current education system, challenges, issues, and we will hear their expectations from us, policymakers and stakeholders in the education and training system. As you see, dear guests, we have a difficult job, but we are not alone. So with that, I proceed now with the first session and with the first 4 speakers in this session. As you have probably already noticed in the agenda, we will have 3 sessions, and the first one is about experiences, reforms implemented in 3 ETF partner countries and 1 EU member state, namely Portugal, North Macedonia, Montenegro and Turkey. Then we will move to a quick sharing of experience and knowledge and issues that our colleagues from CEDEFOP and ILO would like to raise on this topic. And we will conclude in session 3 with a quick debate. Alexia, the representative of UNICEF EU report community, will present the results of a study we have carried out together on inclusive education, together with over 26,000 people from Eastern Europe, Southeast Europe, and Central Asia. And then we will open for the debate. In the meantime, I encourage you to post questions, to post remarks in chat, in English, Russian, Arabic, and French. Please just post there, and we will also have other means of consultation. So it is my pleasure to start now with the first speaker. He comes from Montenegro, Marko Vukasinovic. He is the head of unit dealing with EU affairs and IPA support in Montenegro, and he works in the Ministry of Education and Science, Culture, and Sport. It's a longish name, but you are lucky with this ministry that you cover so many different aspects of all these transitions from school to work and integration. So Marko, we know that first of all, dobro jutro. I will give you the space to say a few words now.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you, Christina, for this brief introduction. I'm now 17 years in the Ministry of Education, and now it's Education, Science, Culture, and Sports. And I'm glad that through the various activities of international cooperation and EU funds, mostly instrument for pre-accession, I was able to get involved on the operational level in so many levels of education, especially in vocational education, and to cooperate with the ETF, also with UNICEF, UNESCO, ILO, which are organizers, also co-organizers of this conference. And I'm very, very glad that I will be able to present some of the achievements and challenges that we are facing in Montenegro.
Thank you. Thank you, Marko. Yes, indeed, achievements and challenges. I kindly ask colleagues from the technical support to upload also the presentation that we have on the Montenegro case. And I ask you, Marko, a bit of the context. We know that Montenegro performs very well when it comes to early school leaving, with rates shares below the EU average. Your ministry has made significant steps in promoting inclusive education, like helping learners and teachers and parents and preventing dropping out. What types of reforms or actions have you implemented to achieve a more inclusive education system? Please, Marko.
Yes, we as of year 2003, 2004, basically we are on the operational level introducing different segments, reforming the education. As you know, it's an ongoing process, it's a never-ending story. And I will just try to emphasize few factors that impacted low rate of early school leaving in Montenegro, besides the traditional willingness of parents for their children to have completed the highest possible level of education. So first of all, there is a possibility of continuation of education for all those students which education was interrupted due to any reason. And in this case, they are obliged, in order to become eligible to continue their education, to attend at least 50% of specific subject classes and take the exam at the end of the school year. And regular students during the school year, they have direct communication with teachers, and these students which interrupted their education, they have consultations during the school year organized by the schools with the aim of better understanding of the subject content for them, and they have support of the school and the teacher through those consultations and counseling. Also, in comparison to the students which are attending classes regularly and have 4 assessments throughout the school year, these students, they take only 1 exam at the end of the school year. Also, what I want to emphasize that during online classes mode, which was caused by COVID-19 in the last school year, all these students that were trying to compensate, they were included in regular students groups, online groups for consultations, and also all online learning materials and classes were equally accessible to them as well. Students in rural areas which didn't have connection to the internet, the materials were delivered to them in hard copy. Also, another factor that is influencing early school rate as such in Montenegro is concept of development of curricula, especially in vocational education, which I'm now focusing on. And the concept is such that student has possibility of all kind of movement through the system. For example, if learner is at 3-year curricula and with passing of few additional exams, he or she can continue education at 4-year level curricula. Also, if learner commenced 4-year curricula and came to the conclusion that it is too demanding, he or she can switch through 3-year curricula. And why is that possible? Because sectoral curricula are very connected. And for example, 4-year energy technician, if you take it as an example, it contains within the 3-year electrical installer. So if the 4-year technician is too demanding, then the learner can switch to the electrical installer, which is a 3-year curriculum. Also, for example, 4-year gastronom contains 3-year chef, or 4-year auto mechatronic technician contains 3-year auto mechanic. And that's why such concept is giving the results that the permeability and mobility of students within the system is rather possible and easy to implement. Also, I would like to point out that all curricula developed in the last 4 years are modularized, and they give opportunity to obtain to learner to obtain vocational qualification, which means that learner can, if complete successfully modules related to certain occupational standards, can obtain vocational qualification that is acknowledged, first of all, by public document, and which is even more important, which enables that learner to enter the labor market, which is our goal, of course, to have really skills relevant for the labor market, and that the graduates can enter fully the labor market. Why am I pointing this out, this modularization of vocational curricula? That is so significant for our learners that are having special educational needs, because it enables them to not only obtain qualification, but to really value what they have successfully completed. And maybe as a last technical part of this first intervention, I would like to share that we have this Montenegrin education information system, which is comprehensive, overarching system, and it within the system, it signals the class teacher, the subject teacher, if the student skips certain number of classes. And it is also signed for the psychological and pedagogical services, counseling services, to get more active and support the student and intensify cooperation with the parents.
Perfect. I mean, yes, indeed, this is crucial. This cooperation with the parents, with supporting the child with tailored counseling is crucial, and it's a key element of the Montenegrin education system. Quickly now, Marco, moving to the, all this pandemic that we are going through and the challenges. We know that, it affected the learning processes around the world, and we know that you are now preparing for the new school year that will start as of September. How do you prepare, teachers? How do you prepare schools to start and to also maybe take some remedial steps, because we know that there are some losses in education. So how do you prepare for the new school year, and what are the reforms you plan in the context of the economic recovery? Please, quickly, Marco.
Well, absolutely. COVID impacted all segments of society, education as well, the quality of education as well. And we know that during the COVID circumstances, we had different methods, different approaches implemented based on the current situation. In one moment, we had only online. In one moment, we had only first graders and the last graders in the schools. So combined approach was used in Montenegro. And within the preparations for the next school year, our central institutions which are dealing with quality of education, so Bureau for Educational Services and VET Center, are implementing in cooperation with schools analysis of the last school year of the learning and teaching process, and how it was planned, how it was implemented, what kind of quality we got back, what was realized, what schools and teachers recognized as the main issues, main challenges. We also are making analysis of the burden of the work for the teachers, because as you know, in one moment they were implementing classes in the school and online. So it really increased their engagement, and also they really made themselves available to the parents and the students 24 hours a day, seven days a week, and which also has to be taken into consideration when planning a new school year. Also, attendance of the students for the online classes, the reasons for skipping online classes, also we have to take them into consideration. Was it a lack of interest? Was it the lack of computers or lack of internet connection? And throughout the year, we already did some analysis of the volume of the curricula in, for example, general education subjects, and the teachers are given the precise instructions on the methods of the implementation. We really wanted to use the all resources for the preparation of the next school year, and the situation where we hope that Corona will be something that is now only a part of history. Anyway, based on the analysis, there is a plan for the implementation of the teaching and learning process, which really involves additional teacher training for the implementation of the digital technologies in the classes. Also, in line with the results of the analysis, we prepared the plan for realization of the practical teaching, both in schools and work-based learning, so at the employers. Because we have teachers, we have students that are in dual education and that are not in dual education. So dual is work-based learning with the practical at the employers, and the ones that are attending the practical learning in schools, we are also developing. We have to be ready for all circumstances. So basically, our priorities will be the further teacher training for the digital technologies implementation, also additional equipping of schools with IT equipment, also availability of all kinds of materials, both to schools and the teachers and the parents, and also support in making sure that the quality of learning process is there, and also the internal evaluation at the school level quality is maintained. And I have to say, if we speak about the reforms, we will definitely try to continue to further invest in education. In all levels of education in the last couple of years, we had increase of budget allocation for at least some 10 to 20% by level of education. And also, I saw that there was one question in the chat.
Yeah, but Marco, my proposal is that we, in this context of the investments and the development of the education, I would like that you take the question and answer to the very interesting question Volodymyr Kovtunets has posted in chat. Yeah, but let's take this answer at the end of the session and give the chance to the other speakers, and then we will have like 5 minutes, 6 minutes,
okay,
so
at the end. What we will try to do is further investments in education. We are having some serious programs and projects which are to be implemented with the support of European Investment Bank in order to increase capacities in preschool, to increase circumstances in vocational schools. So basically, with better infrastructure to increase the quality and accessibility, because as you said, we really don't want to leave no one behind.
Thank you, Marco. Excellent input and a lot of inspiration also for our colleagues around the world. Now let's move to the next speaker. She is Nadica Kostowska. She works at the Ministry of Education and Science in North Macedonia, and she will present a brand new reform that it's ongoing in North Macedonia. It started a couple of years ago, and it's about the establishment of regional VET centers, vocational education and training centers, as a way to optimize and increase the quality and the addressability of the education processes. So also we have here an illustration of the reform. And now I kindly invite Nadica to tell us a few words about this plan to establish these regional VET centers, and maybe to explain also the reasons, why have you started this reform, and what kind of specific needs you hope to address with the regional VET centers, particularly focusing on the vulnerable groups. So Nadica, once again, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you, Christina, for the opportunity to take participation in this thematic event and to have this peer learning activity, actually. So I will shortly present you the process of establishing of the regional VIT centers. And indeed, the process is ongoing and already started in 2018, when the government and stakeholders in North Macedonia have adopted a plan for a new reform targeting rationalization and optimization of the resources in vocational education and training. This plan was included in the Strategy for Education 2019-2025. Therefore, the reform has started in November 2018, when the Ministry of Education and Science established a working group in charge with conceptualization of the regional vocational education training centers. With the expert support from the European Training Foundation in the first phase, the focus was on capacity building and increasing the knowledge among the members of the working group and the school's representatives. In the second phase, a research on skills demand and supply in vocational education training was conducted, and in the selected 3 regions in order to ensure diversity. All these different processes employed a bottom-up and inclusive approach by including representatives of schools, social partners, municipalities, education, and employment experts. In December 2019, the government adopted a decision to select the following 3 schools for piloting the regional VIT centers: Moša Pijade in Tetovo, Polog region, Kiroburnas, Kumanovo in Northeast region, and Vancho Pitoševski in Ohrid, the Southwest region. In March 2020, the concept paper for developing regional VIT center was launched for discussion by holding over 30 virtual meetings involving several educational institutions and the directors from the selected schools. The concept paper covers the formal education, non-formal, and adult education, but also validation of the non-formal and informal learning. The development of the concept supported by the ETF during the past 2 years, and recently also by the UNDP. The working group used the COVID pandemic to learn more how to adjust the idea of VIT excellence to Macedonian circumstances. Sadly, at the same time, we were forced to learn how to say goodbye to our visionary of modern VIT, Nebojša Trpkovski, the director of the VET school Moša Pijade in Tetovo. However, knowing that his entrepreneurial ideas are integrated in the new concept, somewhat is suiting. We have a clear vision to achieve VIT excellence following the 90 criteria proposed by the ETF. And instead of one size fits all approach, the concept paper proposes 3 different types of regional VIT centers in order to respond to various needs on regional level. For the piloting processes, we choose to follow the state model. So in the previous 2 months, based on need assessment findings, the 3 regional VIT centers developed planning instructions for teachers' professional development in line with the new services in the regional VIT centers. The teachers will have opportunities to develop new competencies for career guidance and counseling, professional orientation, practical training, internship, apprenticeships, and work-based learning. The final goal is to deliver tailored support to youth, vulnerable young and adult learners.
Thank you, Nadica, and thank you also mentioning Nebojša. He was the heart of this working group. And I just want to say that beyond having the health staff in the front line of the pandemic, I just want to underline that also teachers were in the front line of dealing with the pandemic and helping our children. So we all have to respect that and to recognize that. So thank you, Nadica. Maybe one other point to underline that this testing, this piloting, you mentioned certain regions. Those are the most vulnerable regions also in North Macedonia with a lot of socioeconomic challenges. So I want to underline this courage of the North Macedonia policymakers to test such approaches in vulnerable environments to see how it works and how a challenge can be transformed in an opportunity to build excellence in VET. Now, quickly, Nadica, we know that the reform is ongoing and there are additional steps to complete. Can you tell us in 2-3 minutes maximum, what are the resources that you have mobilized? We know that EPA also helped you and you mentioned that. And what are the next steps, particularly the laws you have to still change and adapt? Please, Nadica.
Okay, since the economy does better when everyone can contribute, the educational policy makers have the obligation to create the right conditions so that each citizen, young or adult, can achieve his or her potential. In that direction, for example, in cooperation with the business community, chambers, companies, educational institutions, a new law on vocational education and training has been prepared and was open for public consultation in April this year. The new law will include separate chapters on dual education and establishment of the regional VET centers. An important novelty is the establishment of the procedures for initiating new VET educational profiles, qualifications, curricula, or redefining the existing models in cooperation with the companies. Another important reform is the new law on adult education, which can actually be harmonized with the provision with the new law on national qualification framework. But at the same time, the proposed changes in the new law actually are referring to the validation of non-formal and informal learning. So as you mentioned, this is very challenging reform. And in order to have sustainable development and to be ready for the new challenges on the labor market, good coordination of the investments in VET area is crucial. Only by building a strong network between the national and donors institutions, such reforms can be achieved. At the same time, it is crucial the business sector to be recognized as equal partner. The country, Macedonia, obtained the status of EU candidate country in December 2005 and is eligible for all components of the instrument for pre-accession assistance. So support under the IPA 2 is already focused on further development of the regional VET centers. Also, the UNDP project, Bridging the Skills Gap to Create New and Better Jobs, is also contributing in upskilling and reskilling. But additionally, UNDP developed a model for private regional VET center, and they are thinking to invest in private regional VET center in the following sectors: textile, construction, energy, or power sector. Also, under the partnership with the Swiss project, Education for Employment, it is already agreed to conduct a labor market and skills demand analysis at regional level in the remaining 5 regions in the country. At the end, let me have some broader summary for the whole region. There is a common understanding that VET excellence cannot be achieved without supporting metacognitive skills at students. According to PISA 2018, education system in the Western Balkans are below the OECD and EU averages in terms of students' not cognitive skills. Lack of such critical thinking skills suggests that students from the region might be less sensitive and have less access to the labor market. So good coordination on the regional level is a way for going forward. North Macedonia is part of the new Western Balkans agenda on innovation, research, education, culture, youth, and sport. National priorities in the field of education and training are in accordance with the key points outlined in this agenda.
Thank you, Nadica. Thank you, and we will have the chance also to take to further explore that indeed. And thank you for mentioning also the regional agenda, which is extremely important in Western Balkans, given the relationship between the countries and the economic aspects and so on. Now, before moving to the next speaker, I know that we have a quick consultation, and I give the floor to Simona.
Sì, allora, we want to hear a bit from you. Now you heard a lot from us, very interesting. Thank you so much for both the speakers, to Nadica and to Marco. So for all of us, can you please go in the chat? You will find the link to Mentimeter. Click on it. And as you can see, you will have this screen. It's a poll. We actually want to know what is the biggest challenge in promoting lifelong learning. And you have 3 choices. One is reaching all learners, flexible learning pathway, clear skills recognition procedures, motivating and guiding learners, availability of training opportunities. Don't be shy, give us your vote. I repeat, you go in the chat, you have the link to the Mentimeter, you click on it, and you will be basically moved in another world, which is the Mentimeter platforms. Once you have voted, you click on your decision, you click submit, you come back to Zoom, and here is where we are. So don't get lost in platforms, just vote and come back. And for those who, for whatever reason, cannot vote, put your comments in chat. For us, the most important is to hear from you. Allora, Cristina, apart from the fact that the pink is my favorite color, is also the winner somehow, is becoming the winner. We give 20 more seconds. No, actually we're moving to green. Okay, it's the color of hope, so it's still good. So I think we leave 20 more seconds. We have actually the flexible learning pathway and the motivating and guiding learners, which are really very close one to the other. If I would choose, I cannot from this PC, but I would for sure choose motivating and guiding learners, not from the pink, but because I think that with no motivation, no party, you don't go anywhere in life. Chris, 30 seconds, the challenge is on you. 30 seconds to enlighten us on your comments, and then we stop voting.
Actually, yeah. Thanks, Simona. Actually, it was a tricky question, and an inclusive system and promotion of lifelong learning should have all these ingredients. What we would wanted to see from you is the immediate challenges. What you would prioritize immediately to build up this inclusive lifelong learning systems. And of course, the flexibility of the learning pathways are a big issue around the world. And we will hear more later on from colleagues from Portugal, Turkey, and also colleagues from Ireland, Sedefop. And the motivation of guiding of learners in such a difficult world in times like today is essential. So I thank also the participants for continuing filling in and giving these answers. And indeed, flexibility of learning pathways, clear skills recognition procedures, like also Nadica mentioned, that the fact that the adult education legislation needs to move forward to have a successful implementation of the regional VET center. So, and the motivation counseling are essential in these times. I thank you very much. I think now we can move to the second part of this session. And
Krista, can I just say a word? I forgot to welcome again and to thank all the streamers that are voting as well. So thank you so much for all of you. I stop here. Floor is yours.
Super, thanks. And thanks also to all colleagues joining via Facebook, via YouTube. Please continue, and it's a pleasure to have you all. So now we move to Portugal, to our colleagues from a school group, Henrique Nogueira from Portugal. We have here the deputy director of this school group, Mr. José Vale, and also her colleague, Ana Miguel. Hello, and thank you for being with us. We know that it's super early there, but let's move and let's share with our audience the really excellent example from Portugal in building up the qualification system and provision of services. So, good morning, José. We know that Portugal has implemented a wide set of reforms and the aim was to integrate the provision of initial education, continuous training, and other type of skills development services, including the skills recognition that was just mentioned now in this poll. So, Qualifica centers, because this is what you are going to present now, the experience of Qualifica centers. What type of services do you provide in this Qualifica Center, and who are the target beneficiaries? Please, José.
Hello. Thanks for inviting us to explain our experience and to show how we work. So the Qualifica Center is it's a kind of approach for the lifelong learning because we are working with adults. The aim of our project is to work with adults and youngers with have needs, so that don't work and don't study, don't have qualifications. And what can we find and what can do in the Qualifica Center? So the aim in the Qualifica Center is the process RVCC. Recognition, validation, and certification of competences that will validate previously acquired in formal, no formal, or informal contexts. Or we can also have in Qualifica Center the possibility to send the adults to outside for many partnerships that the center promotes to get more and better answers for the adults and young needs. The RVCC certification can be in two pathways. So we can have the educational form to get, for example, the basic or the upper secondary, or also the dual certification. So schooler and professional also. We have this experience with us. We have developed 3 different RVCC pros with adults. It is not an easy process, but it's a big challenge, and we accept this challenge with, of course, with very important. So the other procedure that we have, it means the people that came to us are also people with very problems, not only unemployment, and the pandemic came with this problem, but also people, for example, with lower skills, with obsolete skills. And we also have last year a very interesting program with basic skills for adults that were illiterate. And we, with our partnerships that we can bring and build with the municipality, the social security, the companies that work in our local area, we can make these contacts to be possible to contact these people, not only the workers, but also the social risks, the migrants. We also have in our Qualifica the possibilities to help the migrants with the Portuguese language courses, and also to orient, to guide them to structures that exist in our local to help them, not only for example, to recognition the education level that they had in their countries, but also to help them to, for example, to go to the social security to find help for houses or for other things. So it's a center that have, I think, the most inclusive approach to the people. But it is not only, of course, the aim is skills and reskills and upskills, but also to help them to get a pathway guidance for the future.
Yeah, their career and life and integration in society. Yeah, no, it's excellent. And actually, this is the value of this Qualifica Center, this multidisciplinarity of services that you provide and competencies that you have.
I also I think I have a little bit of time because we also have the possibility to help people with disabilities. So we have experience for because our school, the Qualifica Center, is inside our school, so it is a structure that also have the possibility to work with the potential of the school, and we are a reference for the blind people. So we can make also the RVCC process, recognition and validation of competences, for those people, and we have already one that for us is very good, that finished the process, and we are open to other people that came to us. The building is accessible for those that have disabilities, and we are working together with them to promote the education among them. So
yeah, Jose, we need to move to the next question, which actually by responding to that, you'll also answer to a question that we have in chat from Irina, saying, because that's a huge issue, how do we engage the private sector? So my question in the validation of qualification and this collaboration. So the second question to you actually looks at this element, and we know that there is a value added of a qualification center. You just explained with this diversity of services and diversity of beneficiaries. But I would like to know from you, which is the value added for the community and for the companies. What are the challenges, particularly in this? Let's focus on the companies as well. And what are your priorities for the future? Unfortunately, we have only 2 minutes left. Please, please, Jose.
We start to create a network with the municipality, with the social security, and for other no-governmental organizations that works in local area in the region of our center, our Qualifica Center, to help us to reach these people, because many of them come to us voluntarily, but we know that the social risk, the people with low qualifications, they don't come to us. So it is important to contact these people, especially the social security, because they are people with social help, and this can make the bridge between the Qualifica Center and these people. The other is the companies. Okay, we have contact with the companies. Many times we come to the companies, not now because the pandemic stops with these contacts, but we go to the companies and we show our program and the importance to come to us, and also the possibility that they have to redefine a career or to upskills and reskills some of the process that they have. So for the future, we would like to have more RVCC professional, because I think it's very important, because we have to see that the future is a change world. We are changing, we have climate change, we have the green economy, we have the importance of digital society, and it's important to have these people and engage them to prepare for the future. So it is our goal to prepare the Qualification Center for those answers for the society.
Okay, Jose, we stop here and we thank you very much for your contribution. At the end of the meeting, we will have additional minutes for a debate and discussion, and we would like to hear again from you on this, the challenges ahead, not only the recovery from pandemic, but also the impact of digital and greening transition. And actually, after this session, we will have a session dedicated on the greening impact. Now, with your kind permission, I will move to the last speaker, and I thank you very much for this contribution. I would invite now Mr. Osman Seçkin Akbik. He represents the Vocational Qualification Authority from Turkey, and we know, Seçkin, that Turkey is a flagship, if I can say that, on the qualification framework development, on the implementation of validation and certification procedures that were mentioned a lot. So my question to you is, what was the impact of the fully fledged qualification framework on promoting lifelong learning in Turkey?
Thanks, Christina. Good morning to and good afternoon to everyone who is with us today. Thanks for the invitation and giving me this opportunity. I think first we need to agree what we mean by a fully fledged qualifications framework. To do this, I think it's useful to consider the broadly common elements in national qualification frameworks around the world, and it is important to note that there is a wide range of NQFs in terms of and approaches to NQFs in terms of governance and scope of the frameworks. And in some countries, the NQF itself contains all the key elements. In others, some of these elements are not within the framework, but are related to the framework one way or another. But most are present somewhere in the national systems. And broadly, we can list these elements as, first, the policies, strategies, mission and vision. Secondly, underpinning legislation and guidance, including quality assurance requirements. Then, of course, levels and level descriptors expressed in learning outcomes, internal and external quality assurance, then system of credits and modules, of course, program specifications and qualification types, qualification descriptors, sector and subject level guidance, and professional support for those designing and delivering these programs. And in summary, it's clear that for each of these 9 common elements of qualification frameworks, Turkish qualifications framework either has the elements in place or is close to finalize the arrangements for that element. So we think that the TQF is a fully fledged qualifications framework. And then let's take a look at the term lifelong learning, and the definition of CEDEFOP is very clear. All the learning activity undertaken throughout life, which results in the improving knowledge, skills, know-how, and competences and or qualifications for personal, social, or professional reasons. As you see, the definition is comprehensive than the definition of education and training, and underlines learning rather than education or training. And this is
Seçkin, I interrupt you just 1 second, and I apologize. You should speak a bit up because the interpreters have problems in listening to you. So just speak up a bit louder. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a look at the key impacts of the TQF on promoting lifelong learning. The question to your answer, since the TQF covers all the qualifications which are provided or acquired in all learning environments, whether formal, non-formal, or informal learning. It supports lifelong learning, allowing for transition between different types of learning, and provides proper recognition of these types of learning. And a systematic improvement of the quality of teaching and learning is maintained. And the framework offers individuals qualifications that are valid and accepted in the labor market. And the TQF is also referenced to the European Qualifications Framework in 2017. By this way, it ensures that the qualifications awarded in Turkey are quality assured and easily comparable to those in other countries and in other frameworks. And with the quality assurance of the qualifications, employers and other stakeholders' confidence in the qualifications at national and international level will increase significantly. And with the qualifications also defined by learning outcomes and classified by level descriptors, qualifications have become transparent and more easily comparable. And this helps to facilitate vertical and horizontal mobility between qualifications. The last but not least, the parity of esteem is maintained between qualifications achieved through different routes. This might be one of the most important impacts of the framework in Turkey.
Indeed, indeed, and I'm happy, Seçkin, that you mentioned this, equality of, in terms of recognition and certification and value of skills acquired, regardless the context of learning, the place, time, and so on. So my second question relates to this very difficult topic, recognition of prior learning, validation of informal and non-formal learning. And we know that Turkey is successfully implementing, also targeting vulnerable groups, like, for example, informal workers. Yeah. So my question is, what are the milestones? What were the milestones of this reform, and what were the success factors from your side? And I guess, if I can anticipate, you can already mention now probably the companies, the private sector, their contribution to this reform. Please, Seçkin, 2-3 minutes maximum, please.
Turkey has really highly dynamic working and learning environments, and people continue learning on the job, at home, and during volunteer activities, even after they leave formal education. So this culture is so strong that many people specialize in their occupation on the job. Therefore, there is a great demand for the validation, recognition of those learning taking place at workplace out of formal education. And in order to meet this demand, Turkey established the system for the recognition and validation of non-formal, informal learning, very similar to the Portugal. And this system was established in 2006. And this was itself a reform for a country where successful completion of education and training had always been a condition for all formal qualifications. I mean that non-formal and informal learning were not new, but the recognition and validation of the outcomes of these learning was rather a new idea. And the ultimate aim of the system is to equip the labor force with up-to-date qualifications and recognized work-based learning. And a new state institution called Vocational Qualifications Authority was established for the development and implementation of the system. And the authority was designed in a hybrid model, including stakeholders from the state, employers and employees. This might be the first milestone because the identification of a dedicated institution is a crucial element in this kind of reforms. Secondly, completely new vocational qualifications were started to be developed in learning outcomes based on occupational standards, and new awarding bodies were established by the labor market stakeholders, such as trade unions, employer associations, chambers of commerce and industry, and lifelong learning providers. This might be the second milestone because the determination of common agreed standards and procedures are necessary for valid and reliable assessment. And thirdly, the new qualifications promoted by state and the labor market stakeholders through several legislations and arrangements By this way, people were informed and invited to have their learning outcomes recognized. This is the third milestone, because the promotion of the system by stakeholders is required, as we have seen in the results of the first polling we did. Yeah. And of course, there are several success factors.
But very quickly, Sachkin, very quickly, telegraphic, please.
Quickly.
The first factor is the ownership of the relevant stakeholders. All of the labor market stakeholders should be represented, both on decision making and implementation processes. The second factor is the trust of the end users, or in other words, the quality assurance of the system in place. The third factor is the legislative framework, the support of the system by legislation, because some of the countries are very regulatory, like Turkey. And the fourth factor is a sustainable funding and finance system. The same collaborative approach should be followed in the finance of the system too. Currently in Turkey, I can say that validation services are provided for 350 qualification standards in 20 different sectors by 255 vocational test centers, similar to qualification centers in Portugal. And through these services, 1.7 million vocational qualification certificates have been awarded. As a conclusion remarks, the NQF abbreviation, of course, stands for National Qualifications Framework, but we say that the NQF also stands for No Quick Fix. So it takes
perfect. Yeah, perfect. And I like the word that you said, determination. You know, these kind of reforms require determination. Thank you, Sachkin. And we need to stop here because we are a bit late. It's my fault, my worst, you know.
Christina,
time management.
What should I do to you?
But I propose the following, that in the last session, session 3, the debate, we will start with the question that Volodymyr raised it. So I kindly ask Marco to stay with us and to start with the debate in session 3 with that essential question about the resources and ratio. So with that, I propose to close here this session. I give you the floor, Simona, to announce also the next consultation, and then we move to the break. Thank you.
Allora, Cristina, thank you so much for giving me the floor when I have only 20 seconds left, but I will make my best. What I take from this session is really the word resilience. Never give up. As long as we are motivated, we can really produce results. Having said that, you go back super quickly in the chat, you click on the link of Mentimeter, actually, and you do your input. And in the meantime, you also take your coffee and you also do some exercise. So you have 3 things to do. Go in the chat, click on the link for the polling, do some exercise, take a coffee, and come back in 5 minutes. I promise your time will come to talk. 5 minutes. We will also have a video showing the overall, let's say, conference program. So basically our 4 things: polling, coffee break, exercise, video. 5 minutes. We are back. Thank you to all. And thank you to YouTubers, streamers, not YouTube, streamers, whatever. Thank you. 5 minutes, we are back. Eccoci. So, welcome back. I hope you did some exercise and you take the deserved coffee. It's with my pleasure that I now introduce the following session, and I also introduce my colleague Denise Loughran, our communication officer, who will run this interview. So, floor is yours, Denise. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Simona. Welcome everyone to this second session, which is really about towards inclusion by design of lifelong learning systems. Today we have two speakers with us, so I'm very pleased to introduce. We have Lydia Salvatori from CEDEFOP, an expert from the European Centre for the Development of Vocational Training. And we have Christine Hoffman, the team lead for Skills for Social Inclusion, the Skills and Employability branch of the International Labour Organization. Welcome, Lydia and Christine. I have a few questions for each of you. I'll start with Lydia. Lydia, could you share with us your experience in CEDEFOP about supporting holistic approaches to upskilling in the European Union?
Yes, thank you so much, Denise, and good morning also from my side, and thank you to the colleagues in ETF for having invited CEDEFOP today. Yes, what I would like to share with you is a bit the activities that we have been carrying out in the past few years in support mainly of the upskilling pathway recommendation of December of 2016, and in particular the activities we have been carrying out with the countries. In fact, in cooperation with the European Economic and Social Committee, we have been organizing a series of policy learning events in support of the implementation of the recommendation, bringing together stakeholders from all member states with the idea of exchanging practices, exchanging ideas, and mainly discussing challenges and possible solutions. And already in our first event, which was in early February 2018, we have seen that countries had identified as a lack of coherent and coordinated strategies for them was the biggest challenge to address, at the earliest possible. And it was in response to this request that we have developed an analytical framework. I believe you can find the link in the chat.
Yes.
And this framework really sustains a unique vision for upskilling pathways, which is aimed at creating a comprehensive approach to upskilling by pulling together resources, creating the right synergies for supporting every low-skilled adult towards an individual path to empowerment. It is developed to support policymakers and stakeholders in developing and implementing upskilling pathways, but it's not an assessment tool, it's not a list of necessary conditions. It was really intended to spark reflection as a tool of inspiration. The main elements are that is grounded on a lifelong learning perspective and focus on the empowerment of the individual. It features important systemic elements which are needed for coherent and coordinated approaches. It is aimed at unlocking synergies and foster complementarities, and it's also the result of an iterative approach, meaning that we have integrated qualitative research, 5 pilot country case studies, and 3 rounds of stakeholder consultations with the member states. The framework contains 10 key areas of the policy process organized according to 3 levels. These are decision-making, support, and implementation. When we talk about decision-making, we really talk about adapting and streamlining the existing structures and resources. So this includes integrated approach, governance, monitoring, and evaluation. Then we go to the support level, which is about ensuring that these coherent approaches are really sustained with the right support for inclusive and accessible learning pathways. So here we talk about financial and non-financial support, outreach, as well as guidance. And then we move to the implementation phase, which looks set adaptable and flexible learning pathways tailored to the individual learner needs and built around skills assessment, tailored learning offer, and validation and recognitions of skills and competencies. Within the framework, you will find, like all the different elements. So, definition, rationale, and key feature. Maybe one last thing I would like to say is that from our work with the countries, what we have seen is that the first and key step is really this idea of embedding this approach within a vision, which is shared, agreed, and really understood by all stakeholders, and which is then able to foster purpose, common purpose and motivation to pursue it. Of course, this relies on political commitment, which needs to be continued, and the engagement of all stakeholders.
Okay, thank you, Lydia. I'll stop you there. I mean, that's a very comprehensive overview in the short time that we gave you. I'd like to remind all viewers that the link to the report, the analytical framework, is in our chat. Now I'd like to move to Christine, and I have a similar question for you, Christine, but from a different perspective. If you could share with us the experience of the ILO working with transition and developing countries in fostering this holistic approach, to inclusive skills development.
Thanks a lot, Denise, and good morning from Geneva. A great pleasure to be here and to contribute to this discussion. Leaving no one behind is a wonderful slogan, yet it's still a distant goal in many skills development systems around the world. And we all know the disadvantages accumulate over a lifetime. So young people in many developing countries will have dropped out of the school system before arriving even at the higher secondary level where formal TVET programs are situated. So I'd like to mention 6 key strategies that speak to this holistic approach, as you called it. So the first one is to involve people from disadvantaged groups within the governance structures that we have in skill systems through consultations on the boards, so that their voice is heard and that they are also fully involved in inclusive skills development strategies once they are developed. Key strategy is to improve data systems, because in many countries we don't have disaggregated enrollment data or dropout data or data by type of specialization, so that we actually understand where the issue lies. Thirdly, when thinking about holistic approaches, we should prioritize those universal design approaches that really start at the basic level, from separate washrooms, training TVET trainers on how to create inclusive learning environments, use non-discriminatory language, have policies against violence and harassment inside TVET centers established, but then also have methodologies and approaches for particular contexts and groups, such as community-based training and reaching out to people in rural areas. We don't have coverage in so many countries. So there's an ILO tool called Training for Rural Economic Empowerment, which we've used in many countries. For people with disabilities, we need reasonable accommodation and specialized support staff to facilitate inclusion. We need, and it's already been mentioned by previous speakers, recognition of prior learning systems, so that migrant workers, but also people in the informal economy can benefit from skills services, have their skills recognized. Another approach we've used is improving informal apprenticeships, so apprenticeships in the informal economy, because those are traditional learning systems that exist, but that often don't speak to the formal training system. So we can help support transitions of learners in the informal economy, another systemic way to be holistic. Then, as it's also been mentioned, so 5th strategy, flexible approaches. on admission, so thinking about admission tests rather than entry levels. Training schedules can be flexible, assessments can be flexible, and we have to include non-formal training into the pathways to further learning and pathways into the labor market. And then last but not least, I'd like to also mention one tool that we've developed, which is an assessment tool for policymakers, but also for training program managers, for people within TVET centers to raise their awareness really about where are the inclusion issues in their system or program. So it's a very easy checklist. It's for free, available on the ITC campus, and the link I think is also posted in the chat.
Yes, it is.
Everyone can use it, and it sort of takes 20 minutes to take, and it really helps identify where the barriers are.
Thank you, Christine. That's an excellent and very structured overview. Many of the issues that you have mentioned, I mean, all of the issues resonate with the discussions that we're having during this event. Certainly the issue of data, the importance of data, came up in our session yesterday on monitoring and adapting systems. And also your response leads to the next question, which I will address to Lydia. I mean, you mentioned very clearly the importance of community outreach and also engaging those who are more vulnerable in the governance structures. We also had an example from Portugal earlier in the session where they gave an excellent example of how they are doing that. They're increasing their training capacity and they're reaching out to the local community. So I would ask you, Lydia, would you have some other examples from other countries that you could share with us?
Thank you, Denise. Yes, indeed. What we have seen within our work is that countries are really doing a lot. I've been doing really a lot in terms of, developing these integrated approaches. We have seen how at the earlier stage, let's say, of the upskilling pathways recommendation, a lot of the work has been really focused on developing these more integrated structures, so more at this decision-making level, working more on the governance structures. But indeed, outreach, guidance, and I would say also tailorization of the learning offer are the main examples and the main policy areas that member states have identified as the one that are most pressing, and not only the areas where they they are focusing at the moment, but also the areas where like the focus should lay now. I would also like to mention here that, for example, we have started working directly with two countries, namely France and Italy, doing an in-depth thematic review of their upskilling pathway approach, and these are called TCR projects. And what is interesting in this type of project is that there is an official mandate and cooperation with the member states, meaning that there is a steering group nominated by the ministry responsible for the implementation of the upskilling pathways recommendation, and which includes all of the relevant stakeholders. And we have just started in France and Italy, and there again, outreach, guidance, and tailorization remain, are the priority areas where our work will be focusing. What I would like to mention also, though, is that when we talk about outreach, we talk, of course, about the individuals, but also the companies. So also how to reach out and engage the companies into offering learning and training opportunities in a systematic and continuous manner. but and you know, also as Christine mentioned before, also this also links in the one of the other issues that emerged as you know, like future priority and things we still need to work on, which is the sustainability, but also the investment in the capacity and professionalization of the practitioners and the teachers and trainers. And this again not only refers to the appropriate pedagogical skills and capacity to work with adults, but also on how to reach out and motivate them. And maybe here one final point is of course the importance of the practitioner and professionals at the you know, community level and the local level. This is one of the aspects on how to engage and include them in the system, is one of the topical point that came out from the discussion with the countries, and which is particularly important when we talk about outreaching, especially in relation to more vulnerable and disadvantaged groups. And in the link, in the chat, you will also have the link to our PLF presentation, and there you will have very also interesting examples in relation to what countries are doing and country presentations.
Thank you, Lydia. Very many elements in your response. I mean, starting with the flexible learning pathways, I think even in our poll it came up as the top factor. Your response also in part answers the final question, which I will address to Christine now. I mean, we know that the pandemic has had an incredible impact on economies and societies. There's many different needs and challenges depending on context. So I would ask you, what for you are the key ingredients for a recovery that really has inclusive skills at its core?
Thanks for this question. And the ILO has last week adopted a global call to action for a human-centered recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. So I can base my response on this new global call. So we've just had our International Labour Conference. And I'd say there are sort of 5 key ingredients from a skills point of view, which you would find in this global call. So it recognizes that vulnerable groups were hardest hit, and hence strategies need to place the needs of those hardest hit at the heart of recovery, right? So this is done through the promotion of decent work, support for sustainable enterprises, environmental sustainability, and a transformative agenda for gender equality. Yet, so when we think about strengthening public and private investment in skills and lifelong learning, because this is one of the key ingredients, clearly increasing investment, we are faced with a situation of a spending crunch. So we'll have to finance more with less, and hence be very strategic about how we are building back better. It's the big. So we have also done some rapid skills assessments post COVID in a number of countries to see which are the strategic sectors that have potential for employment generation, and which are skill intensive. And that's very important, because only then would they have a trickle down effect on other sectors, and hence can lead to diversification and productive transformation. So I think that's a key strategy. Then we need solid career guidance systems and employment services, so that people can be supported in their numerous transitions.
Yes.
And it is absolutely critical to involve the social partners through dialogue at all levels when it comes to those financing decisions, but also to partnerships, etc. And as Lydia also said, So the question about motivating learners is very important, and the role of workers' organizations in doing so shouldn't be underestimated. So it's really about partnership, focusing on social dialogue, and looking at the key sectors that can help boost the economy again, and keep the focus on the most vulnerable. Thanks.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just have here in front of me the title of this brief session with you both. It's about towards inclusion by design of lifelong learning systems. And I think I thank both of you for really giving a comprehensive overview of what that design should include. I would now ask my colleague Christina, perhaps, if she...
No, it's me.
Oh,
it's
sorry.
me, actually. No problem. Okay, I have a final... No problem. Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you to our speakers, which I would like to spotlight back, because we have actually a challenge for you, for Lydia and for Christine. So if I can have the two speakers spotlight back, excellent. So Lydia, Christine, how would you describe inclusive education in 5 words? Haha. And I know women can do that. It's a gender issue here. So 5 words, how would you describe inclusive education? And then we can consider the session closed, but we need your inspiration. Lydia, you are the first victim.
Okay, thank you, Simona. Okay, hard, I mean, challenge, but and also maybe not so surprising. I would say flexible, tailored, accessible, quality, and empowerment. So leading to empowerment. So yeah.
Okay, Lydia got it 8. So thank you so much. Christine, how would you describe inclusive education in 5 words?
Participation, involvement, partnership, engagement, and universal.
Say it again.
Universal.
Universal. Thank you so much. Actually, I think I can pass forward back to Christina. Thank you so much, girls. You were excellent. And thank you, Denise. Christina, over to you.
Thank you very much, and a lot of food for thought and to discuss also in the last part of the meeting today. We also have a few remarks in chat, and I invite Christine and Lydia to have a look, and also from our participants in the social media streaming. There is another point on how we expand opportunities for elders, yeah, so for other groups. But let's address this. Let's ask all of us to address these questions at the end of this the meeting. Before looking at these elements, please now welcome our youngest participant in this event, Alexia Popescu. She is the representative of Young People, a network that is managed by UNICEF and animated by UNICEF. We can maybe also see her now. Please, Alexia, welcome. Good morning. So
hello, everyone.
We are now entering the last part of the event, and it's the session, the way forward. But before discussing the way forward, we wanted to see what is the opinion of young people? What are their expectations in terms of, inclusive education system, fighting discrimination, and so on? And Alexia will guide us through a recent report that was jointly done by UNICEF and ETF. The publication is also available on our website. Vanera will upload the link. Now, Alexia, I would give you straightforward the floor to you. To present also a few words about the report and also the main messages. Please, Alexia, thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Take a second. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Alexia. I'm from Romania. I am 17 years old, and I will present the I will do a presentation on inclusive skills from a youth point of view. So first of all, this presentation is based on a UNICEF ETF joint report with 8,500 adolescents and youth on average per poll. It is made from a EU report and some focus groups that I also participated in, and it had 3 topics: lifelong learning, green, and inclusion. So first of all, the EU report showed us that 61% of respondents have experienced or witnessed discrimination, harassment, or exclusion against students in their school. So this also means they have experienced it and witnessed it, as it is written there. But as you can see, this percent is very, very high. And in my opinion, it actually should be higher, because a lot of the respondents maybe do not know what discrimination is. So let's define it. So it's the act of making unjustified distinctions between people based on their characteristics. So why is it like that? So first of all, kids are scared to say that they've been bullied or harassed because they will be judged by their parents or their teachers. So we can see why the percent is maybe smaller than expected, even though it's really, really high, because this goes back to victim blaming. So whenever something that has happened to us, we also think of the implication our actions have had. And discrimination is never the youth's fault or the young person's fault, even though it might seem like it because it's some characteristic of ours that is being discriminated against. Another participant said that she was discriminated by teachers and students alike. So this is a really important part of the poll and the focus group, in my opinion, is that teachers also discriminate. So the full-grown adults that are our role models and authority figures in school also discriminate. So how are we as youth or as adolescents supposed to develop in that environment and actually not discriminate against some of our peers if someone who is a fully grown adult does it in front of us and makes it okay? So the first step would be educating teachers and the people who are supposed to be educating us in return. The EU report also asked about types of discrimination. As we can see, the highest is sexual orientation. The second and the third are disability and ethnic or religious background. So the second and the third, as we can see, are things that we can identify by sight. So the first thing that we see about the person. They are really important, because if we think about disability, it doesn't have only the hardships of discrimination, but also the hardships of the person that we're talking about. And also ethnic and religious background are some things that we cannot change and some things that also describe a person in full. And about the first one, the sexual orientation, we have here a quote from the focus groups. Someone's sexual orientation is not the first thing you learn about the person. If and when you come out, you will hear a lot of hate speech against you. So what we can get from this is the thing we most discriminate on, but it's not the first thing that we notice about the person. So maybe this is more about the thing we see before a person comes out. So you know how kids joke around usually, like a girl who dresses feminine is gay, or a girl who is more masculine is a lesbian. So this actually stops a lot of the kids from coming out and actually being themselves, maybe in an environment that should be safe, like at school, and maybe stops them from acknowledging what they really want to know about themselves. Also, another quote that I really liked is that in school, people say always, girls can do this, girls can do that. Girls aren't good at doing things with their hands, like mechanics. So I also experienced this firsthand in a robotics class or something like that. Someone said, oh, you're not going to be able to do this because you'll break a nail or something like that. And this doesn't only create an unsafe environment, it actually makes girls like me actually less prone to trying new things. Because if you fail at doing something, you can see that it actually reflects upon not only you as a person, but on all the other girls that will try to do it in the future. So it's more pressure being added to a person who's already pressured enough, being an adolescent or youth who's trying to do something new and find themselves wherever they can. Another quote from the report was that very rich children make fun of others from poor families. And even though this is very unpleasant, and I acknowledge that, what I wanted to say about this is that it can go both ways. So we do not only need to focus on the discrimination that goes from a majority to a minority, but also the other way around, or maybe discrimination that goes against someone who is in a very good position, or for example, a very rich child or adolescent or youth. So it goes both ways. That's what we need to know. And we do not need to accept any kind of discrimination. Even if we are talking about someone who is in a perfect situation, discrimination against them is just as bad as someone who's in a worse situation. And that's what I took from this a lot. So what can schools do? As we can see, most people selected providing extra learning support, for example, materials and tutoring. So this helps not only in the case of discrimination, so we're not only talking about learning support for discrimination and what it means, but also for helping children and youth and adolescents find themselves and learn what they need about themselves, so that discrimination is not actually such a big problem when it is against them. And also we know that discrimination also tells something about ourselves, so being insecure, and maybe more learning support helps people actually develop and go past this stage of their lives. This is my favorite quote from all the focus groups. So a girl said that I also discriminated against others in some of the ways that we discussed, and I managed to change my mind, and I am very proud about that. But it would be good. I was taught to be more accepting of others at school. So this is actually the effect of education on discrimination. So we all need to acknowledge that we may have discriminated at some point in our lives, and that is the first step. And also what we can take from this is that it's not a group thing to solve discrimination. It's actually an individual decision that each and every one of us makes every day. More than systematic or something like that, it's something between people. So what I take and what I would like all of us to take from this is that in order to be better, we need to do better. And that's the message I would like to leave you with on this presentation. So thank you very much for listening to me. I hope it was interesting and didn't waste your time. And I'll go back to whoever is next.
It's me next. Thank you so much, Alexia. First of all, compliments for your hair, which are wonderful. I wish I could have the same. I had it when I was 20, so I'm sorry to share this personal insight. So thank you so much. It was really inspiring, enriching, and give us a hope, a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that before passing to the following session, which is actually our last one, let's have just a quick look at the results of Mentimeter. Actually, we ask you what is the key ingredient of inclusive lifelong learning. I see we have diversity coming as the winner, but I think that the best positioned person to comment this word cloud is my friend and colleague Christina. Over to you.
Thank you, Simona, and thank you also, Alexia, for this absolutely excellent presentation. And actually, we have to thank to all over 8,000 teenagers and adolescents who answered to these questions. Not very easy findings, not comfortable findings as well. I mean, having 60% out of them saying that they witnessed discrimination, that's a worrying signal. And I think it's important to look at these signals when it comes to building inclusive education. And this relates perfectly with the outcome of this Mentimeter, diversity. Yeah, so I would interpret this aspect also from this angle. So be it diversity of learning pathways, be it diversity of arrangements, but I think we need to understand also the diversity of beneficiaries and the diversity of our world and how we need to understand it from now on. We see also personalization, we see also issue of sustainability, motivation, scoring highly. So I would take this, and I kindly ask you to continue filling in this questionnaire. But I would also like to open a bit the discussion and maybe to take also some live contributions from you. So who feels that you want to make a statement, a verbal statement, please raise your hand. In the meantime, I only would like, if you allow me, to go back a bit to the questions we had. And the first one is about resources. Yeah, we talk about the diversity of learning pathways, but this we know that it takes a lot of resources and so on. And one of the main points, first point made in our chat, it was about the idea or studio to teacher ratio. And I know that Marco has already replied in writing to this question, but I kindly ask Milo, invite Marco to say a few words, yeah, about that point.
As you saw in chat, I gave the numerical answer to our esteemed colleague, but I also want to share a bit more to put it in perspective. Because Montenegro is not a big country, only 620,000 inhabitants, but North, Central, and South are very diverse. North is a rural and mountain area, and that's why we have such numbers. So the law says that it's up to 28 students in the classroom, and in the North we have far less than 28, but in the Central region, with a special permit of the ministry, you can have up to 32, I believe, students in the classroom. And as I said, recently we have changed the legal framework, reducing that maximum number to 28, because we really want to achieve that more individual exposure between teacher and student is enabled like this. Also, we reduced the volume of curricula in last couple of years, also in order to increase quality by increasing that individual exposure time, because we really and strongly believe that individual interaction between the student and the teacher is the most appropriate one in which you need to invest. And of course, as colleagues already said, other infrastructural preconditions for successful implementation of policies in the classroom.
Thank you, Marco. Indeed, an excellent point on taking into account the local conditions, the specificities, the challenges when allocating this kind of resources, because we have this discussion about the per capita funding and all this in education, and there are a lot of issues to take into account. I would move now to another comment that another participant made in chat, and I think it refers more to what Lydia and Christine have shared during their interventions. It's about the pandemic and changes in learners' engagement. I think it's not only about pandemic. We witnessed even before pandemic that there is a change in the learners, expectations, profile, and so on. So probably our colleague is saying that there is a need to develop an inclusive infrastructure that consider digital learning platforms as the new normal. That of course there is a need of specific monitoring and skills assessment and the attainment and as well well-being. Few reflections from Christine and Lydia. I would also add to that, because I think it's integrated somehow, a point that we got from social media participants about opening up and making available lifelong learning opportunities to various groups. And we discussed a lot about young people and the inclusivity of the initial education and so on. But the point we got from participants there is about elders, so older workers. What kind of learning opportunities are available for them, for the prime age workers and also the older workers? So Christine, Lydia, would you like to share a few words on that?
Yes, maybe I go first, Lydia. Yes, indeed, this was also one of the issues that came up in our discussion in November at the last PLF with the on upskilling pathways with the member state, and we had the example. So it was indeed mentioned that you know, the importance of these learning platforms, you know, and also to how to exploit these new opportunities somehow, that you know, this new transformation and changes that we are witnessing, you know, how to better exploit them. And we had interesting examples from Finland, you know, and I would invite again maybe the participants to go, because the presentation are on live. So, and there was this discussion on the you know, how you build this digital ecosystem. However, another point which was mentioned, given that our work was is mainly with low-skilled adult and also vulnerable people, was the you know, to ensure that these were indeed inclusive approaches and would not instead you know, create even more divide, because we know very well that the digital literacy of some of the of these adults you know, might not have the digital skills, might also not have the digital infrastructure in their homes. So also to how to ensure that this does not create even more divide, but is indeed an opportunity. So it was indeed, and as I said, countries have mentioned it. We had the example of all three main countries represented, both Norway, Ireland, and Netherlands had good, very good practices in this respect.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, a lot of examples and bold reforms also in the EU member states, but in the ETF partner countries. Christine, any
thanks.
reflection from your side?
I can quickly add, I mean, really along the same lines of what Lydia said. All the workers have also been hit harder. So according to ILO analysis as well in the pandemic. So they are among those groups, and digital inclusion is even more of an issue in developing countries. In least developed countries, only like 20% of households really access the internet. So very big call of caution, not to increase the digital divide, but to really see where also low-tech solutions. And so we're not only talking about those digital platforms in countries where connectivity is an issue, but you know, to use TV, radio, and also some others, maybe portable solutions, offline solutions, etc., and investment in digital skills to make use of those tools and services that are coming up. I mean, the private sector is putting them on the market, but so a big need for skill systems as well to think of that and invest in this digital literacy of both young and older workers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, and actually I would also underline what you said, Christine, at a certain point. It's this universal, one key word that you wanted to pass when it comes to, I don't know, key ingredient of an inclusive education system is this universality in the approach, yeah? And I think this fits perfectly with what the question of Azar Ramazanov in chat. And it's about how to deal with challenges related to a change of perspective and approach from segregated setting, learning settings, I suppose, to an inclusive one, inclusion one. So indeed, you shared already a lot of reflections on that, and it takes resources, it takes empathy, it takes data and information, as you also mentioned, and also the other speakers. Unfortunately, we see at the ETF that it's very difficult to collect data on the participation of lifelong learning. The indicator is not available in many countries. And if it's available, unfortunately, we see participation rates of 1%, 2%, yeah. And that's really, really worrying, because we see that actually lifelong learning is not yet a reality. So with that, I would maybe move also to my colleague, Carmo, and I would invite her to take the floor, as that we do not monopolize this discussion. You raised an extremely important point, and that was also, it was striking for me as well. Yeah, the fact that only 1 out of 3 students noted that he or she was not discriminated. What do you think? Because I know, Carmo, you have also an excellent experience in building the qualification system in Portugal and not only. So what do you take from that? You know?
Thank you, Christina, for giving me the floor. I hope you can hear me well. No, in fact, thanks again also to Alexia for the excellent presentation, because it was really interesting, and to hear from her voice this kind of results, I think it has a very important impact in all of us. At least in me, it had this impact. And you know, when I saw that result again, and it was said by Alexia, I thought about also this experience that we had in Portugal, that we had to put in place policies for addressing the needs of adults that were low qualified, because they had very unsuccessful learning pathways at the school when they were at their school age. So they were early school leavers. They were people that have dropped out from their school pathways. And then later in life, they felt that they were discriminated. They didn't know how to express that. And maybe they just dropped out from school because that was not a pleasant environment at all. So for me, it was again this idea that if we are talking about building lifelong learning systems, including everybody, inclusive systems that work for everybody, we need to tackle these kind of issues that are now happening in our schools. And it's not only an issue in Kazakhstan or in Romania or in Portugal or in Kenya. I think if we would do something like this survey around the world, we will get the same results. And we talk about inclusiveness, we talk about lifelong learning, and I would say that this could be a root cause of a lot of early school leaving, a lot of dropouts from school that later on will need to have a kind of second chance or remedial opportunities for learning. So let's really reflect about it and try to address these at the age of schooling, and in particular by using all the potentialities that our education systems have and all our public education provision as in our countries. That was, I would say, for me, it was one of the most interesting things. And if you allow me just to say one comment on the presentations from Turkey, Portugal, and validation of non-formal and informal learning. I was also very impressed that sometimes we look at qualifications frameworks as something very static, very rigid, very formal. And it's impressive how qualifications frameworks can work to enable one of the most flexible pathways, that is validation of non-formal and informal learning. So I leave you this reflection to you, and it has been a great session. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, the national qualification systems are the backbone, I would say, of inclusive and adaptable lifelong learning strategies. I would now invite, we have a very active contributor in chat, Mr. Mohamed Vakban. Maybe you'd like to take the floor and share your experience. If everything is all right with your connection and we can hear you, would you like to take the floor and share your points and reflections? Mohamed? If not, I can also share, and I think we have addressed this these points to a large extent. So what Mohammed is saying is that the challenges there are a lot of challenges affecting also the environment of teaching, the habits, the customs, and the specific regions, for example. And he also underlines the climate plays an effective role in teaching as well. So. And the point is also the impact of technology and what countries should do, those that do not have access to technology, what they should do to make this kind of, inclusive education a reality. I hope, Mohammed, I reflected well your points. And I don't know if other colleagues would like to, participants would like to give a feedback also from the speaker side. Okay, since we actually, this part of the work, in the work today, it was also thanks to UNICEF. I would kindly invite Nina from UNICEF to make a kind of final reflections also from what Carmo has said, because I know that actually the point of high level of discrimination in school or around schools is a problem around the world. And I know that UNICEF has also other insights on, additional insights on this problem. So Nina, would you like to say a few words in the concluding part? Or Cristina Bacalso from UNICEF.
Yes, sure. Hi, Christina. Thank you for that. Yes, I think that that the input from Carmo was exactly right. What we see and what we try to work towards is really establishing and supporting whole youth development and whole adolescent development, in particular because of that dividend, of that future generational dividend that we see. And this is why we feel it's so important to really try to strengthen their capacities now, because it does pay off in the future for them as individuals, but also for us as a society, and for thinking about more resilient, more productive adults that they will grow into. So thank you, please, for highlighting that.
Thank you. Indeed, this is the best conclusion I would I would keep for this session. I would like to thank all the speakers. We are now closer to the end of this meeting. I would like to invite Alessandro, our colleague, to upload again the results of the Mentimeter, the word cloud. We will continue this exchange with you. We will have also in the next session on the climate change and the impact on education. And tomorrow in the high-level event, together with my colleague Jolene, we will have a special dedicated session on accessibility, affordability of the education, and I hope I will be able to transfer there the richness of your points and discussions and advice we had today. So Alessandro, can you upload again the word cloud to see the final results? I want to thank Marco, Nadica, Jose, Anna, Sechkin, Lydia, Christine, and Alexia, and all the other contributors from my side, from the chat and participants. So thank you deeply for your contribution. Simona.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, I want to be honest with you. We cannot share again the results simply because Alessandro is in another room for the meeting that is following. I want to be honest with you.
No problem. Tomorrow I will show it in the high level.
Voila,
yes?
Voila. So
okay.
We keep a bit of suspense. This is the beauty and the beast of the online. So my final word is, because Alessandro cannot screen share actually the word cloud, please at 11:30, if you have time, stay tuned. We have the following session on green and innovation. I just reminded to all of us that we have also the Ideas Bazaar, the virtual experience in 3D. The link is in the chat in case you want to visit it, and it covers inputs from the 6 thematic areas of this conference. That's all from my side, apart from thanking you all. I think we can do this top spotlight, and that's it. Actually, thank you so much. Shukran miktir, merci, and spasiba. And that's it. There should be so many languages to cover in our wonderful world. Cristina, super last word to you, and then I have to run to the other meeting.
No, simply thank you once again. Thank you for your efforts and work in your countries, most importantly, and for your availability to share the experience with us and with the other colleagues from other countries. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Sorry we couldn't stop the spotlight, but okay, thank you so much. For me, if you can stop the spotlight. Thank you, Carmo. Bye, see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.